Yeah, and it's a good question because I get a lot of calls from people that think that family law attorneys handle things that they may think are family law matters, but are sort of different. They're
Sure.
connected to family law in a way, but they're not really what I would consider um, traditional family law areas. So obviously, the big one is divorce or
Okay.
dissolution of marriage. That's the primary thing that we handle, and then all of the sort of ancillary things that occur related to that. So, for example, if somebody gets divorced and then they want to modify something that was in their final judgment or in their marital settlement agreement or parenting plan, then we handle the modification of those things. If somebody's not following the agreements or the court orders in a divorce case, they're not paying their child support, they're not paying their alimony, they're not following the time sharing schedule.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Orlando podcast. Today with me, I have Josh Martell. Josh, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Josh, I want to start off by asking the same question we ask everybody. Why is it that you do what you do?
Well, that's a great question. I'm a family law attorney, and so I've always wanted to practice law ever since I was a little kid, and wanted to get into the legal profession. But then, when you go to law school and graduate, you have to figure out, well, what type of law do you want to practice? And in some ways, I sort of fell into family law, but as I started practicing, shortly after I started practicing, I realized that this is the area I want to primarily focus on for the rest of my legal career, and I have. So I've been practicing now for 9.5 years, and basically been practicing solely family law. I'm also a Florida Supreme Court certified family law mediator, so I mediate family law cases as well. And the reason I decided to focus in this practice area is because, well, first of all, it's a very dynamic area of law. It's not just looking at contracts all day and you want to, poke your eye out at the end of the day. It's different every single day. There's different things that are going on that oftentimes I've never even encountered before. But also, it's really a way that you can feel tangibly that you're helping people because you're dealing with individuals that are usually, if it's not one of the most traumatic things that have ever happened to them, oftentimes it is the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to them. And you can help guide them through this really hard time in their life and hopefully do it in a way that minimizes the damage to them and to their, really oftentimes even more importantly to their children. So yeah, it's a very satisfying, rewarding area of law as well. It does come with its drama, but there's a lot of drama in family law that you have to deal with, but it's worth it.
Sure. So that's that's cool, and I want to talk more about that and kind of where that desire comes from. But let's go all the way back. You said you knew you wanted to be in law when you were young. How old were you when you decided you wanted to be in law?
Well, that's funny. It's a funny story because I didn't get licensed and start practicing until I was 31 years old. So it was I
Okay.
say, I say it was a second career for me, but really it was like a third or fourth career for me. So I had a sort of a winding path to law, but I always knew from the beginning when I was a kid that I wanted to do it. But what happened was um, I was I got married my sophomore year in undergrad in college
Okay.
at the University of Central Florida, and it was 2004 that I graduated, and I studied for my LSAT. I took my LSAT. I was looking at law schools, and I had a buddy of mine that was in real estate, and it was 2004, which was basically as hot as a few years ago here in Florida, as far as the market. And
Yeah.
he talked me out of going to law school. He said, "Why would you go to law school? Spend all this time and energy and get all these student loans. I'm making good money right now. Just join up with me. Let's go into real estate." And so I did, and I was in real estate until the market crashed in the middle of 2007. And then I decided, okay, I don't have the ability to withstand this year or so of complete drought that we're looking at when the market crashed. And at that point too, I had two kids, and my wife was looking at me saying, "Hey, this isn't going to work. You got to start making some money here." So that's when I went back to my original dream of I need to go to law school. So I went to law school in 2008, and I worked in corporate America, sort of, from 2007 all the way up until I graduated law school in 2013. So yeah, so it's
Interesting.
actually like a third career for me.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. So, I have so many more questions. I don't know that we have enough time to get through all those, but what what was it that made you want to get into law as a kid? Like, what was there an experience, an interaction? Was it a TV show?
Well,
What gave you the idea?
you have your parents always tell you that, oh, you're good at arguing and you're good at talking back, you should go to law school. But it's funny because being a lawyer is, I mean, there is some of it that's arguing, but that's not the primary purpose of being a lawyer. I found that out since I've been practicing. But I don't. It was something that I mean, you can call it like sort of maybe a calling, if you want to get a little bit spiritual about it. It was just something that I always sort of knew was something that I was meant to do. And even when I was doing real estate, and even when I was working, in the corporate world, I was doing it because I wanted to make money. Well, when I was working in the corporate world, I was doing it just to survive, to get through law school.
Right.
But when I was in real estate, I was doing it because I thought it would be easy money, and it would be something that would be financially rewarding. But it never tapped into that, inner calling.
Sure.
And then when I found my way back into law, and went to law school, it just fit. I mean, even in law school, I knew I was in the right place.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's an interesting road. So, you go back to school. What did you do while you were in corporate America? Not that it's terribly relevant, but just curious.
Yeah, so I worked for a large relocation company that actually is no longer in existence. It was called Grable,
Okay.
and I needed to find any job I possibly could because I was, again, like I said, I was in real estate, and I had no sales for 6 straight months, and my wife was like, "All right, I don't care what you find, you got to find something. We need to get
Right.
we need to get some money through the door here." So I applied to all these different places, and ended up being hired by Grable as a relocation salesman. So what I would do is I would go into people's homes and sell them on they were relocating with their company. They work for Macy's or something, and they're being relocated to Texas for whatever reason. I'd go in and I do give them an estimate. Usually these companies would want multiple bids, and so we would be bidding with other relocation companies. And the funny thing about that, though, is that it ended up being the perfect job for law school because I was driving. My territory was basically 1/3 of the state of Florida, so it was Jacksonville all the way down to Port St. Lucie, all of Central Florida, Marion County, Gainesville. So it was a huge swath of Florida. So I would spend hours and hours a day in the car. And so what I would do is I would get these law school tapes, like civil procedure on tape, and I would listen to it while I was driving. And by the time I got to the point where we had to take the exams, I would have that whole entire tape memorized. So it really actually helped me in law school as well to have that type of job. And then I got the jobs. It was a sales job, so as long as you were meeting your quotas, people weren't making sure you're at your desk until 5 o'clock. So I sort of worked the job that I would get all my appointments done by around 3:30, and then I'd go to the law school, and class didn't start until 6 because I did the night program for law school. So classes wouldn't start to 6. So I'd have a couple hours there too where I could study and prepare for all the cases you're supposed to read and everything like that for law school. So yeah, it was a good fit.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It sounds like you spent a lot of time working and studying. Did that have an impact on kids, wife, home? I mean, it sounds like a big sacrifice. Obviously, it seems like it's worth it to get to where you are today, but tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you could do a whole separate podcast with my wife about that if you wanted to. But yeah, she basically didn't see me for about 3 years, and then the last year it got even crazier because the last year I interned with a law firm that was handling the George Zimmerman murder trial.
Wow.
So I interned with Mark O'Mara, who was the lead attorney on that case, and so I was going to law school at night. I was working until probably about at that point, maybe 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I got all my appointments really condensed into one, and then I was going and interning from 2 to 5:30 at this law firm for 18 months, because that's how long the actual case took. So yeah, it was, the funny thing though about that is, what I found was that when your time is already allotted for, and you don't have a lot of free time, you actually are much more efficient with your time. So, I had to study for the bar during that period as well, and I knew that I had this many hours. This is it, every single week that I could study. So there wasn't a lot of inefficient time. Whereas some people, they take 2 months off to study for the bar, and that's all they're doing. And maybe in 8 hours they actually really focus for 3 hours. Well, that wasn't my experience. My experience was, all right, I have this amount of time for everything in my life. This amount of time with my family. This amount of time for work. This amount of time for studying. And you couldn't slack off, because if you did, you'd get behind really quick. So
yeah. So I have a question about that. Do you have a really rigid calendar schedule? Did you have a really rigid calendar schedule? Were you actually time blocking family time?
No, I mean, honestly, during at least the last year where I was doing the 3 things all at once. I mean, I really didn't. I'd leave the house at 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, and I'd get home 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night, pretty much every day. And the weekends, I would study. The nice thing was, in your 3rd year of law school, it's not nearly as difficult as your 1st year of law school. So the
Sure.
timing there helped. But I'd still get family time in. All my kids at that time were very young, so it was tough. I mean, you can ask my wife. It was much more traumatic for her than me, because I was so busy and she was just stuck with all the kids. And I was doing this new exciting thing, and I was really, I was part of something exciting. So I was even though I was working really hard, I was really having a good time. And she was sort of just stuck with the mundane day-to-day taking care of the kids. It was a lot harder for her.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely sounds tough,
Yeah.
but I assume the sacrifice was worth it.
No, you asked her, it definitely was, because our financial ceiling now is much greater than what it was before I became an attorney. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's very cool. Tell me a little bit about how you fell into family law, because you mentioned you kind of fell into it and now it's your specialty. It's all you do. So tell me a little bit about how you fell into it, and then I'd like to learn a little bit more about what specifically a family law attorney covers.
Sure. So I mentioned to you I was interning with Mark O'Mara, and he has a criminal and family law firm. That's the 2 things he does. And so I was basically only working on that one case, that criminal case. But I started becoming friends with all of the paralegals and other attorneys that were working for him at the firm. And one of the paralegals that works there, she was the administrator for this organization called the Central Florida Family Law Inn. And it's an organization of 150 family law attorneys. I now actually sit on the board of that organization. And they, every year, they would have 2 student members that they would allow to attend the meetings. One was from Barry University, one was from FAMU, which is where I went to law school. And so since she was the administrator, and I built up a relationship with her, when the applications were coming in for the student pupil members, she told me, hey, you should apply for this. And I think she sort of vouched for me a little bit too. And so I got selected as a pupil member of the Inn while I was in law school and interning at Mark's office. And so that was an incredible networking opportunity for me, because I was basically going to this meeting where there was 150 possible employers, that had family law firms. And I just networked and got to know some of these folks. And there was an individual, her name's Nancy Weber, and she's a very well-known family law attorney here in town and family law mediator that I just sort of built up a relationship with over a couple meetings. And someone was telling her, hey, my associate just quit. I'm looking for an associate. And she said, oh, I got the person for you. I was just talking to this gentleman, this young man, he just became a student pupil of the group. You should talk to him. So that's how I got my first job. And I literally The week after the Zimmerman trial was over, which was in July of 2013, I got licensed that week afterwards. My bar application got fully processed. And then the week after that, I started working with my first boss. It was Christine Bauer. So Bauer Family Law was my first job in family
Awesome.
law, and it was just me and her. And so we were, two attorneys, and now she only practiced family law, and that's just how I started on that track.
Very cool. I love that. That at the center of that whole story is networking and relationships, and it's so critical when you're trying to get anywhere to surround yourself with people that are either doing what you want to do or at least having the conversations that you want to have. So really cool.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the specifics of what a family law attorney covers. What do they do? Who do they help? Because I don't know that I know entirely everything that you guys cover, and so it'd be a great opportunity for me to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's a good question because I get a lot of calls from people that think that family law attorneys handle things that they may think are family law matters, but are sort of different. They're
Sure.
connected to family law in a way, but they're not really what I would consider um, traditional family law areas. So obviously, the big one is divorce or
Okay.
dissolution of marriage. That's the primary thing that we handle, and then all of the sort of ancillary things that occur related to that. So, for example, if somebody gets divorced and then they want to modify something that was in their final judgment or in their marital settlement agreement or parenting plan, then we handle the modification of those things. If somebody's not following the agreements or the court orders in a divorce case, they're not paying their child support, they're not paying their alimony, they're not following the time sharing schedule, then we also handle what we call contempt or enforcement proceedings to enforce those final judgments. Another really big area of my practice that is becoming more and more bigger area is paternity actions, which are simply people that have children that are not married. And so handling, making sure child support is calculated correctly in those cases, making sure, of course, the parenting plan is established and all of the different things that go into the parenting plan that are established with two people that have children that are not married. So paternity actions. We also handle domestic violence cases. So those are sort of quasi-criminal, but they are also domestic in nature as well. So if somebody is trying to pursue a domestic violence injunction or is defending against one being imposed upon them, we handle that as well. We do very simple adoptions. So like basically in situations where everyone agrees, there's consent for the adoption, no one's contesting it, we can handle that. But if it gets to be contested, I refer that out because that's a little bit beyond my expertise.
Sure.
And then I do, like I said before, family law mediations. So all of that stuff I told you about, the paternity actions, the modifications, the contempt, the divorces, I will mediate those for individuals. And usually those individuals are both represented by attorneys, and I'll help see if we can figure out a way to resolve the case without going to court, because going to court in family law is usually not a good idea, especially with all of the decisions that you would prefer a total stranger not make in your life, the very personal decisions that are involved in family law cases. If you can avoid going to court, you definitely want to do that.
Hey, before we go any further, if you're enjoying this content, please like and subscribe so you can help us get the word out about these amazing people and businesses here in the Orlando area. Don't miss out on upcoming episodes and help out the show. Now let's get back to it.
I assume that's the number one piece of advice you give people. If you can avoid going to court, you want to do that?
Yeah, my sort of tagline is that you never want to go to court, okay? Sometimes you have to, and there's really tough situations that you have to. Like, for example, another area that we handle is what we call relocation cases, where it's similar to a modification, but two parties have a child or children together. They've gotten divorced, or maybe it's a paternity action. They've established a parenting plan through the courts and everything. But then somebody gets a great job opportunity in San Francisco, and they want to move, and they want to take their kids with them. Well, the other parent, it's very rare the other parent is totally cool with that.
Right.
Because what that means is instead of seeing your child 50% of the time, you're going to see your child 25% of the time. And you have all of these additional complications too if somebody's living 2,500 miles away of cost of transportation, all that kind of stuff. So you can have two very reasonable, normal people that they're just not going to come to an agreement on that. They're going to have the judge make the call. So you have situations like that where you have to go to court.
Yeah.
But then you have individuals that think that they're going to get vindicated in court, that the judge is going to see what a big jerk the other side is, and the judge is going to stand up and say, ma'am, I can't believe you've had to deal with this guy for the last 10 years. Sir, you're going to jail. Well, that doesn't happen in court. These judges, they see thousands, and I mean, sometimes it does happen, but it's very, very rare. But these judges see thousands and thousands of cases, and they see usually cases that are a lot worse than what you think your case is. And so oftentimes the remedies that these judges give in court is very dissatisfying to litigants. And so it's very, very rare that I walk out of court where both parties feel satisfied. Usually somebody's mad, or sometimes both people are mad. Everybody's mad.
Yeah.
And so with mediation, with alternative dispute resolutions, that's an opportunity where both people they're going to have to give some things up, but they can come out of the process feeling that they at least got some of what they wanted to get. They compromised and they had control over the process, and they got to prioritize what was most important to them and what they were willing to concede on. Whereas in court, you don't get to make that call. The judge is the one that gets to prioritize, and it's just pure luck that the judge's priorities sort of match yours.
It seems to me like your job involves a lot of negotiations.
Oh yeah, that's basically it.
And I would assume some sales too, because you probably get some offers that you have to sell. I mean, not that you would sell it to your client, but you have to present it in a way that's going to, if it is a good opportunity for them, if it is the best that they're going to get,
Absolutely.
Without having to go to court and roll the dice and gamble, I would imagine there's a sales component to your job as well.
Well, I'll tell you that having that sales background going into law has been extremely helpful for me. First of all, just on the sort of the client management side of things, because there's a lot of attorneys that will take a week to answer an email or not return a phone call or not communicate with their clients in the way that their clients deserve. And now, not to say that you don't sometimes have to tell your clients, hey, look, we can't be talking 2 hours every single day because
right.
your retainer is going to go up, is going to be taken up real quick. But just that's the customer service side of being in sales is very, very helpful for me. But you're right, there's sometimes where it's just like if you're a doctor or any other profession, sometimes your clients need to be educated as to why this proposal, while on its face it may seem like this isn't a good deal for you, why it isn't. Why, when you look at everything holistically, when you look at the cost of litigation, you look at all of the different things that you might not be considering, making this compromise is in your best interest. Also, what are the odds of if you go to court, you're going to get what you're asking for? If the odds are 50-50 and you have an offer on the table that's giving you 80% of what you're asking for, and it's only a 50% chance that you're going to get anything, then that's a good. There's a lot of sort of pragmatic talks you have to have with clients about risk reward and all of that kind of stuff, and you have to have the experience to be able to tell clients, look, I had a trial on this very issue just a year ago, and this is what happened, and I'm telling you that it's very likely that this could happen again. So. And I know that judge, and I know this judge, and so there's so many different factors. Not that you can ever predict what a judge is going to do exactly, but
right.
Judges' personalities, and if they're inclined to do something or not inclined to do something. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. So you went to work for a family law practice as an associate. Do you still work there now, or I believe you have your own firm now? Is that right?
Right. So, yes, I have my own firm, Martell Family Law, and we started in April of 2021. So I guess it's been going now for about 18 months or so.
Okay.
I was an associate at multiple different law firms for 8 years. So I worked at that Bauer law firm I told you about for 2 years. Then I went back to Mark O'Mara's office as an associate, as an attorney, and worked for him for about a year and a half. And then I spent the majority of my time as an associate with a firm called the DeWitt Law Firm, which was a great experience, somewhat traumatic, but it was a very great experience because it's a high volume law firm. So they had hundreds of family law cases. Most law firms, most healthy family law firms will have somewhere between 50 to maybe 75 cases. I have right now about 55 cases. But at DeWitt, I was handling anywhere from 150 to 200 cases at a single time. So it was baptism by fire, and there's a lot of really awesome benefits to it because I'm not scared of anything now because I've been thrown into situations where I get a file put on my desk and they say, hey, look, trial's next week, good luck. You got to figure it out. And so I was able to do that, but it was really, really stressful. And so I am enjoying the balance of not having that many cases, even if it, it really hasn't meant less money. It's funny because when you have your own business, you can work sort of, 2/3 of the amount and make the same, if not more, than when you're working for somebody else. So.
Tell me, so I'm curious about that. Is that the motivation behind going out on your own? Was it the stress levels? What was that? How did you come to that decision that I'm ready to go hang out my own shingle and generate my own business?
So it's something that's always sort of in the back of your mind. And as a professional, and it's not true of everybody. Some people they don't want to have to deal with that administrative side of having your own business. But for me, it was always in the back of my mind. I had a lot of personal overhead. I still have a lot of personal overhead because I'm highly invested in children. I have 4 kids. And so it wasn't something, it was very scary for me and my wife, frankly, for me just to start my own thing, because if I didn't hit the ground running,
Right.
we were going to be in trouble. So there was no, let's take 6 months to ramp this up and your pay is going to go down by 75% while you're ramping it up. And so it was a very difficult situation, or difficult decision, I should say, for me to make. But there was sort of just a combination of a bunch of different things that happened in the beginning of 2021. Number one was the cases just kept going up and up and up at DeWitt. I was, I had at the time I left DeWitt, I was attorney of record for 260 cases. And my wife was not happy with me because I was just a bear to be around, and I was working every single waking second, and it wasn't sustainable. And they were trying to bring people in to help at DeWitt, but it's hard to find good people, and they would bring people in and they wouldn't work out and they would get fired or they would leave or whatever. So there wasn't a light at the end of the tunnel that stress level was going to go down anytime soon. So that was one of the factors. But there was also just a lot of other factors that, I don't want to get into spiritual things, but I'm a Christian, and so I also felt that God was telling me this is the time through just he wasn't speaking to me in a audible voice, but it was just all of these things that were happening in my life where he was saying, all right, now's the time to take the leap. To sort of jump off the cliff and take the leap of faith. And I did, and even that story is an amazing story. I can be really quick with it, but I was attorney of record for 260 cases at DeWitt. So when I told Moses, all right, man, I'm leaving. I'm going to start my own thing. I made the decision. I'm going to start my own thing. He was in a little bit of a pickle because with attorneys, if you're attorney of record of a client, you have to give that client the right to go with the attorney that is leaving the firm. So it's not like they can just say, all right, Josh never existed. It's sort of a different way that clients have to be handled because you have a fiduciary relationship with your client. So me and Moses had to agree on a letter that we would send to all of my clients I'm attorney of record for and say, okay, you've got 3 options. You can either stay at DeWitt, you can go with Josh, or you can find a new attorney. And they get to make the choice, and it's their choice. And so we both, me and Moses DeWitt, the owner of the firm, had sort of a problem on our hands because, first of all, I couldn't take 260 cases day one. I couldn't take 130 cases day one, or probably even 75 cases day one, because I had no infrastructure.
Right.
And I never ran a law firm before, so that wasn't going to work for me. And he didn't want to have to transfer 260 clients worth of retainers over to me too, because that's a big amount of money that's going to be taken out of the firm. So we worked out a deal where I stayed an of-counsel attorney of that firm and just worked out all those cases. So I had no drop in my income for about a year. It was really
pursue new business
while I was able to build up my own firm. So that fear that I had of not having that stable income was resolved that way. And so it was really an awesome way to transition into having your own firm. And now I'm completely on my own. I'm not of counsel of them any longer, and it's great. I mean, I'm making more money than I've ever made, and have a work-life balance I've never had in the past. So
that's an incredible story and awesome to hear. Well, we're coming up close to time, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. Any parting words of wisdom? We get a lot of folks that listen to this that are budding entrepreneurs or business owners themselves. So, any words of wisdom for fellow entrepreneurs out there?
Well, I would say, number one is, don't be scared. Don't be scared to start your own thing. If that's something that really is on your heart, if you're working with a company and, there's more support out in the community than you think there is for you. And that's one thing that was really shocking to me. When I started my own firm, the amount of referrals that I get, I do very little marketing. Okay. So all of my leads, and I get a lot of consults, a lot of leads come from past clients, people I know from my church, people I know from my community, and other attorneys, other professionals in my field. And so you can do it. I mean, if doing things, even things like this, or just being involved in your community, being involved in the community of professionals, whatever profession you're in, networking, people will give you leads. People will give you referrals. Now you have to be a person of integrity. You have to be a nice person. You have to be, when you get those leads, you have to, treat your clients well and make sure you don't burn somebody that refers you a client, obviously. Right. So you have to be competent. But you would be surprised, and even to this day, I marvel at the amount of support I've had from my community in starting my own firm. It's been really great.
Awesome. Cool. And where's the best place for people to find out more information about you if they want your services, or maybe they just want to pick your brain?
Yeah, so what I would say is, first of all, you can Google martellfamilylaw.com. That's the website. But if you Google it, you can also take a look at all of my Google reviews, so you can see, okay, what are people saying about this guy? Is he someone that would be a good fit for me? So that's how I always suggest. Yeah, on my website, all our contact information is there. So yeah, I would just say look at, just Google the martellfamilylaw.com, and that will give you everything you need to know.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks again for being with me today, Josh. And thanks again to all of you that are listening. We'll see you around Central Florida.